I had to really like figure out who I even was anymore. And through that, I did a lot of grieving and a lot of soul searching, and I had to lean on my faith. And I think I really, for the first time, really like dove deep and was alone enough in solitude to just really understand what faith even means to me and what defined it and how it helped me heal and move through that time.
Hi, friend. Welcome to Gather and Growth, a show created for passionate, growth-focused rural women like you. From mindset work and building strong habits to exploring the unique joys and challenges of living rural, this is a show to leave you feeling joyful, inspired, and a little less alone. Together, we're on a journey of reaching for the most confident, healthy, and authentic version of ourselves, and I'm forever grateful to have you by my side. Whether you're currently running on a back road, shuffling kids to town, hopping along for a tractor ride, or 3 loads deep into folding laundry, grab yourself a nice coffee and let's dive in. Hi, friends. Welcome back to Gather and Growth. Today, I am joined by someone who has become a dear friend. Kaitlin came to my Ascend retreat last year, and I think just one of the things I admire so much about Kaitlin is so many of the things that she's been through, which we'll get into today, just a lot of different hard life situations. And like many of us, was on a very maybe predictable is the right word, trajectory, just with what she thought life was going to look like, and then had a moment of, wait, I think that there's something more or different or a different way of existing that's meant for me, which has really been the catalyst over the past year to bring some very cool projects to fruition that ultimately I think are rooted in a lot of the experiences that she's been through and how to help other women, specifically in rural communities and small towns, take charge of their own story and navigate all of the ups and downs that come alongside of it. So without further ado, Kaitlin, welcome. So I could just, first of all, listen to Kaitlin talk all day long because she just has the most soothing, beautiful voice. But Kaitlin, for someone getting to know you for the first time, not only will you tell us a little bit about who you are today, but some backstory of like all of those different things that have happened that have ultimately, like I said, planted the seeds of passion for the work you're doing in present time.
Today, I guess I'll start with kind of today, where I am at and a little bit of what I'm doing, and then I'll go backwards. So I am in South Carolina. If you couldn't tell from my accent, I'm from the South, and I'm married to my husband, Ace, a farmer, and we grow corn, wheat, soybeans, and we are poultry producers. We've been married coming up on 10 years this fall. I've told him, I said, we have been together like a third of my life now. This is so crazy. And we have 2 little boys, Kate and Ashley Keith. Ashley Keith is almost 2. Kate just turned 4. So my house is always a disaster and everything's always, like chaos and wild. So that's where I'm at today, but I would not change a thing. I guess I'll go back to almost 12 years ago, maybe 11 years ago. I feel like was one of the first big, scary things that happened to me and Ace. And I was like, oh my God, it was one of the worst things that I thought at the time was the worst thing that happened to me. So we were not married at the time. We were shacking up. We were just living together. But the house that we were living in burnt down. We didn't have not as much belongings, I guess, as if it were to happen today now, like so much more, it would be more devastating. But then I had a lot of very, very, very special sentimental Christmas ornament things that were like my grandmother's. And I mean, I'm a big Christmas decorator. I had like 2, 3 trees in that house, and I had ornaments that were saved every year from when I was born that like my mama had gotten me. So I was very, very devastated by losing all of that. And then I remember after that, I definitely went through like grieving the loss of that. And then like your house burned down. So we ended up moving into a rental house. And let's just say the carpet was like the orange shag carpet from like 100 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if like in the 70s or 80s or whenever the house was born, so there was like glitter on the ceiling.
Our house had that. Our house had gold popcorn ceiling before we renovated it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and it was just not like the heat would tear up in the winter and the air didn't work in the summer and the plumbing was messing up constantly. Hot water heaters busting on us. Like it was very, oh God. And then one night the dryer started smoking. So
Oh
I
my
just
God.
was like, I'm going to start throwing all my stuff out of the windows because I'm not like, I don't even have anything to burn up and like I can't lose it again. But we made it through that season. So that was 2013. And we got married in 2014. And right before we got married, we moved into our new house. Then I had my salon then in Fair Bluff. I'm trying to keep my timeline and all the things going
It's
my
okay. Don't worry about
way.
dates. It's all part of the story.
And then I had my shop in Fair Bluff. So it opened in 2012. It was a salon on Main Street there in that town. And that town is on the Lumber River. So 2014, we got married. Then 2015, my grandmother passed away. I was super close to her. Like I was with her every day growing up, spent the night with her on weekends. Like she was, I say I was her favorite child out of my aunt and my mama because I mean, I really was. But that was really hard. We kind of knew it was coming, but it was still like a big life changing event. And
Mhm.
then that was October of 2015. And then January of 2016, my husband's father passed away. It was very, very out of the blue. It was just like a Thursday night. And I remember my phone rang. It was like 11:18 p.m. I will never forget the time.
Mm.
And it was Ace's mama, and she was just like in a panic and told us to come. It was David, Ace's daddy, saying, you know, something's wrong. And we live right across the road from them. So it was no time we could get over here. But I mean, we got here and he wasn't breathing and he had kind of like passed out in the floor, which it was a heart attack. They later
Mm.
said is what it was. But I mean, we called the ambulance and everything, but I mean, he basically even we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, Ace and I mean, Mr. David was I was holding his head in my lap when he took his last breath,
Mm.
and it was so unexpected. I mean, he was 52 years old, and
Wow.
Ace had talked on the phone with him earlier that night. I mean, just like at the end of the day, you know, they worked together every day. And Ace, when he went off to college, he had a job lined up with Arbor One, so it was in the ag industry, but from a different perspective. And he decided to come back to the farm because his daddy had Lyme disease, which turned into rheumatoid arthritis, and his health had kind of gone down a little bit then.
Mhm.
So Ace came back to the farm then in that was 2009, and Mr. David got a good doctor that could really manage the pain and stuff, and he started taking, I think it was the Humira shots monthly, and that really turned it around for him health wise. And Ace, they argued and fought. I mean, I'm sure everybody who is on a farming operation and farms or works in any way, shape, or form with family can relate to the ups and
Mhm.
downs of that. But at the end of every day, Mr. David left it at work and it was, you know, it was done at the end of the day. And Ace has said that he never regrets that he came back to the farm after college because that was time that he got to spend with his daddy before his daddy passed
Mhm.
away. So
Mhm.
that was extremely life changing when that happened. I mean, we saw him every single day of our lives, and my husband worked with him every day, all day. And then that, of course, changed dynamics on the farm. And
Mhm.
Ace's grandfather was still living. So the way things fell after that, it got ugly between family, but eventually it worked out, and things today are really good with the family. Ace's grandfather passed away a couple of years later, but we had to go into mediation and through lawyers and all of that
Mm.
fun stuff to kind of get things sorted out after Ace's father passed away because it was just so unexpected. So that was 2016. And then later in 2016, I had a very early miscarriage. And we have been trying to get pregnant since we got married in 2014. And that was like the first pregnancy that we knew of. And I remember going to the doctor and telling them I thought that I may have PCOS because I, of course, was having all these crazy symptoms and my cycle was so irregular. And they did a ultrasound and then blood work, and I went back for a follow up, and they didn't even know why I was there when I went for the follow up. So I decided then and there it's time for me to change doctors, and I did. It took me 6 months to get in with the new doctor, and she ran all the tests when I saw her and confirmed that I did have PCOS. So we think that that was a big part of what caused the miscarriage in 2016. So I was put on metformin, and within 3 months, I was pregnant. So that was early January of 2018. I found out I was pregnant with a little girl, Evelyn Lee, and pregnancy, I mean, it was great. It was just hot because it was the middle of the summer in South Carolina. And we got up to the end of the summer, let's see, September. So we had a hurricane come through. That was Hurricane Florence. So I forgot about Hurricane Matthew. Hurricane Matthew was in 2016, October 8th, 2016. And that's when I lost my salon, was the hurricane in 2016. And then 2018, we had another hurricane come in. It was Hurricane Florence, and it was mid-September. So the flooding from both hurricanes was really, really bad. Ace lost 2 houses of chickens, so about 60,000 chickens, I think he lost, just because the house was flooded. And then all the roads were completely washed out or blocked because we have a lot of rivers and swamps here. So we're very low lying, close to the coast. And I couldn't get to my doctor's appointment, my 37-week appointment. I couldn't get there because there just was no way safely to travel there. And so they just told me, no big deal, just come, next Monday. So I did. And that weekend I didn't feel super great. And I just chalked it up to, being pregnant. And then we hadn't had power for a week because of the storms and everything. So, and it was hot. So I just chalked it up to that. But when I got in and they measured my belly and then we're searching for the heartbeat, she couldn't find it. And then she switched out Dopplers and still couldn't find it. And then she said, well, let's go do an ultrasound. So I was putting my clothes back on and I was trying not to freak out. I was like, I think I knew, but I just was not letting myself believe it. And then we went to ultrasound, and I knew then when she wouldn't tell me anything and she stepped out of the room to go get the doctor, I knew then that it was, there was no heartbeat. But they took me into their office and they were really, really good to me. They called Ace from their cell phone, and then everything just from there, I don't know. They gave me the choice. I could go home and wait for labor to start, or I could stay and we could, induce. And I just mentally could not. I didn't want to go home and have to go home and see a nursery and even have to wait. Who knows? It could have been another week or two. I didn't want to. I just couldn't feel. I didn't feel like I could handle that emotionally, and I was like, I definitely can't go anywhere because people are going to see me and they're going to think I'm still pregnant. I just couldn't wrap my mind around doing that. So we decided to induce labor, and we started that Monday night. And I ended up laboring, I think it was 28 hours, close to 30 hours. And I'd only gotten to 5 centimeters at that point. And then I had an epidural, but it got to the point where I could feel all the contractions, but my legs just couldn't move. And I would sit there with the little button that you get to mash, and watch the light on it and just mash it and mash it and mash it. And my daddy and Ace would roll me trying to get the medication to move and work, and it just wasn't working. And it was 3 a.m, and my body was give out, and they had me on 40 units of Pitocin. And if you know what that is, oh my God, it's the devil's drug. I hate Pitocin. I hate it. I know after I had my C-section with both boys, and I came out in the recovery room, and I looked and I was like, "Is that pitocin? Get me off of the pitocin!" And I was like, "What do
Mm-hmm.
I have to do to get off of it?" And just
Mm-hmm.
stand up and walk. So I was walking before my toes had even like gotten all the feeling back.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think too, going through a forced labor like that or an induction, and it's your body is not naturally contracting, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't get the breaks that your body would naturally give you. It
Yeah.
is rough.
Brutal.
So my blood pressure started going up some that night, and we got the doctor that was on call in, and she was amazing. So I told him, I was like, I just can't do anymore. And they really tried to talk me into, waiting it out and trying to have her naturally. And I just could not at that point, especially I was only 5 centimeters along. And so we did the C-section, and I did not want to be awake. I told him I don't want to be awake. So they did like a light sedation or something. So I just was basically asleep. And then I got to hold her when I came out of recovery, and they brought her out, and she looked just like Ace, just like her daddy. And I remember holding her, and even though I felt like completely heartbroken that, I mean, she was not with us, I still remember the feeling of like holding her and looking at her and thinking, this is a miracle that I created. Like my body created this baby, and she's still a miracle, you know. And then, two, one thing that I was told when I lost my first baby in 2016 to a miscarriage, I think it was my mother in law that told me that you helped get a soul to heaven, that in order
Mm-hmm.
for a soul to get to heaven, they have to pass through earth. So I just try to look at those situations as I was chosen to get this soul to where it needs to be, as a, I mean, that's a way more positive way to look at it than just, spiraling into negativity. And trust me, I did spiral into a lot of negativity and had some very hard days, and I was very raw emotionally for a very long time. But I had decided to take 6 months off work prior to having her because I wanted to be at home with her because we had been trying for a really long time to have a baby. And I just took that 6 months to be by myself and the solitude of just trying to figure out who I was again, because it's really hard when, especially you get to that point in pregnancy. I mean, you've got like your whole life planned with that child, and
Mm-hmm.
you see yourself as a mama to a little girl, and you're going to do this and do dance classes, dance recitals, and you're going to, all the little girl trips, things you're going to do. Like your whole life's planned out with that child. So I had to really like figure out who I even was anymore. And through that, I did a lot of grieving and a lot of soul searching, and I had to lean on my faith. And I think I really, for the first time, really like dove deep and was alone enough in solitude to just really understand what faith even means to me and what
Mm-hmm.
defined it and how it helped me heal and move through that time. So I set goals, and I decided to go get my instructor's license for cosmetology. And that's when I kind of got into that. I did a temporary position teaching while I was pregnant with Cade. I got pregnant with him in 2019. And then when I had him, 2 weeks after I had him, he was born March 4th, the whole world shut down with COVID. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything was shut down, so nobody could work, especially
Yeah.
not in the hair industry. So I was home with him for about 7 months before I started
Mm-hmm.
working again behind the chair. And then the opportunity to teach full time came about, and I took that job in fall of 2021. And then 8 weeks into that job, I found out I was pregnant again. And that was not planned. That was Ashley Keith, my wild second child. So, yeah,
A
it's a lot.
lot. It's a lot of life.
I guess, Emily, I could go from 2021. So, at that point, I thought that that was the dream job that I wanted. That was like the good benefits, the good salary. And I
Mhm.
mean, because Ace and I are both self employed, as me a hairstylist, him a farmer. And just to have those benefits and like, oh, I could get retirement, I had it in my head. I've got my child now, I've got my family, I've got the job. And
Mhm.
finding out, surprise, I'm pregnant with Ashley Keith, it was okay. But then when he got here and I had a toddler and a newborn in that job, it was just a lot. And I realized this maybe is not all what I thought it was going to be.
Mhm.
So that's kind of at the point where I started listening to your podcast. I think that's kind of where I discovered you, is I was kind of looking and searching for something. At the time, I don't think I
Mhm.
realized what it was, but I was just in need of something else.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember you sharing that, just like feeling at the retreat, like things are, which I feel like is so unanimous for so many people I know, is like things are good, but some things not quite right. Like you said, like I have what I think is my dream job. Like I have a beautiful family. I've been through a lot, and like, I'm healing and yada, 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 so on and so forth. But like, I remember you saying, like, I just feel like I'm going through the motions. Like, is this it?
Yeah. Yeah, I felt completely burnout. Like, I was sitting there thinking, like, 30 years, can I do this for 30 years? And I think I was just like, no, I don't. I knew I couldn't inside deep
Mhm.
down, but I had not, like, said that out loud and, like, fully accepted that, I don't think, until the retreat. And when we got to, we were doing the workshop, and it was like, I got down to, what I want to do. And then it's like you write down why you want to do it and then like why you don't. That's when it
Mhm.
really, really hit me. I could
Mhm.
almost cry thinking about it. I was like, this is so dumb. Why am I doing this to myself? Like, why am I making myself miserable? And
Mhm.
for like three reasons that don't even pertain to me, it was all like because so and so will be mad or because of what this person might think. And I'm just like, this person doesn't pay my bills. Why am I worried about that? So, really, when you step back and break it down, it's just
Mhm.
like, okay, why do we put ourselves through so much crap?
Mhm.
And if we're not happy, why don't we just change it? Why don't we just do it?
Mhm. But do you feel like prior to Ascend, like you could even see an alternative outside of that? Or was that even in your awareness to consider something different?
Night when we got there and just talking with some of the other women. Well, I'm not going to quit my job, because that people were saying too, I'm going to quit my job or somebody's always going to quit their job after this. And I was just like, I'm not going
Not
to quit
me.
my job. But I was kind of saying that with doubt a little bit. I was like, I
Mm.
don't think I'm going to quit my job. But yeah, I went home and I basically told them on my first day back, I'm going to leave at the end of the semester. But yeah, I think I just had so much around that decision before Ascend. I felt like if I were to leave that position, I felt like I would be failing. And I think that was a
Mm.
big part of realizing that just because I'm like doing something different or changing directions does not mean that like I was bad at what I was doing or that I was failing. It just means that I'm in a different season and
Mhm.
I've changed and evolved, and it's just time to move on to something different. And I
Yeah.
think that was a big part of just realizing that like I'm not a failure because I choose to do something different.
Do you feel like that job in some aspects was like a place where you found like stability and healing on the other side of so many hardships? And so was that part of the reason it was really hard to let go of? Because it was like, I'm letting go of this like safety net I've built for myself. And like in the absence of that, what's going to happen?
I feel like Ascend was a giant therapy session, like an in depth, like I should have probably done therapy, yeah, and but it would have like spanned it out for 6 months to a year to figure all this out, but it was all condensed into one weekend. But I remember just being able to like reflect on it like that in that way and really
Mhm.
like think about. So when I set the goal to, get my instructor's license was kind of like the first big thing to do with my career, after we lost Evie. Like, that was kind of one of my big steps moving forward. And then, like, my very first class that I taught that first semester, those students, like, they have a special, special place in my heart because they were like my very first hair babies, is what I call them. And then they were there, like, when I found out I was pregnant, and like
Mhm.
they kind of watched me grow and I watched them grow. And I feel like we poured into each other so much. Like, even them as students, like, helped me heal so much. And I still speak and talk to all my students for the most part. But like, there's several of those girls, let's see, that are coming to work with me. Three of them are from that class. So it just, like, I love them and I know they love me. And it really was a big part of my healing journey, being able to pour into something and people. And I'm very big,
Mhm.
I'm an Enneagram too. So I, like, want to take care of people and, like,
Yeah.
pour everything into them. And that was like what I needed in that time and that season to help me heal and, like, move forward.
Yeah. And so that's, you said like, oh, if I know I'm not happy, why can't I change? Well, it's always so much more than that. Like, there's so many layers when we're closing a chapter, even a really good one, that, you had more emotional attachment to that than what could be seen on the surface level. It wasn't just a
Hmm.
job. It was like where you refound yourself on the other side of one of the hardest things you've ever been through. It's where you had
Hmm.
beautiful relationships and found like purpose and meaning. And, I'm sure all of that was part of it. And so to consider the alternative to that feels like letting go of a whole chapter and a whole piece of you that was really hard to put back together.
And I think now everything in hindsight is, different looking back. But now seeing, like, where I am since, so it's almost, well, like, Ascends this weekend, your Ascend retreat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like
1 year
a year
exactly.
from yeah. And, like, just to think, sometimes I think about it, and a year ago feels so far away. Like, it feels like it's been 5 years ago to me, almost, just because
Yes.
of the change in the way I, like, look at things. And I think too, I'm so much more aware now of just, like, all, I don't know, I still get into spirals and get, in my feelings and get crazy and spiral into doubt and all that things, because we're human. We're always going to do that. But I feel like I don't let myself get bogged down in the feelings that I think I'm feeling. I try to, like, sit on it a minute and reflect a little bit more. And,
Hmm.
like, I feel like I have a better perspective when I look at even, like, how I felt yesterday, or, and then, like, moving forward. I know my expectation is I'm going to be scared when I do things, and things are going to be scary, and, things that I do may not be forever. But now I have a perspective to look at it like, just because it's not forever doesn't mean that I'm going to fail at it.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
and, like, look at failures as more so I'm living and I'm learning. It's not really failing. I'm just moving forward.
Yeah. Well, and I think on a very outside looking in perspective, you're obviously doing different things than you were prior to the retreat. And we'll get into that. But like opening the new salon and your podcast and the event that you're hosting. But the growth that I see in addition to those things is, like you said, just like what intentionality looks like on a day to day basis. It's like, I think you've said something along these lines, but like the brain you're existing in is different than it was a year ago. The way,
Mhm.
you have flexed the muscle of tenacity and that kind of bounce back and the self awareness. And it doesn't mean that hard days don't come. And it doesn't mean we, like you said, don't spiral out sometimes, but it's like the way you reground yourself and the way that you like continue to seek that alignment in purpose and intentionality is so different on the other side of that decision to, start living that life on purpose, so to speak.
Definitely agree with all that.
So since we already touched on it, tell us a little bit about Emerging as Me, both the podcast and now the event that you recently announced.
So after Ascend, I, like, through, the spring and summer last year, I just felt like this. I don't know, pull or energy of like, why don't I just like share my stories and things? And I was like, why not do a podcast? I don't know. When
Mhm.
I jumped out there, I just really jumped out there. Is all I can say. I was like, we're going to do it. So I decided to do a podcast and share some of my different stories about, what we've been through and really about like hard things and just kind of, I feel like the overall theme of the podcast is just like keep going and
Mhm.
my stories, other people's stories, and then just like, I know lately I've talked to my last episode, I talked about like to find strength and then like break down kind of what that, those types of things on the podcast. I really just want it to be a place where people can go and listen and feel inspired and like they're not alone and
Mhm.
like they've got a grounding spot or a place where they can move forward. So, I want people to find a little bit of peace and comfort out of it. And
Mhm.
then, so I have come up with the idea to have an event it will be in November the 9th in Fair Bluff, North Carolina and it will be at the Gathering Barn there. So my mama has a wedding event venue. So shout out to her because I'm going to be taking over the venue that weekend. And Emily, you're coming. I'm really excited to have you in the Carolinas.
Me
And
too.
one of my very best friends from school, like way back fourth grade, Tabitha James, she's going to be speaking. I'm really excited for y'all to even just meet and connect because I think you're going to love each other.
Me too. Me
And
too.
I'm just really happy and excited, and I feel very inspired, especially by you, to be able to create like a space. I just want everybody to feel or to grow and like the awareness like that I have today and the perspective. I just wish I could just like sprinkle it around like for everyone. So that's kind of I want to talk about at the event, our mindsets and it's for women and I wouldn't even say specifically rural women, but maybe more geared towards rural women. But when I think about me as a woman, I think about all the things that I do, all the roles that we have as like
Mhm.
mom or even like grandmama, aunt, and then professionally, like what we're doing and all the things we're chasing, goals we're trying to achieve, and just how I feel like we all don't realize how much alike we all are. And
Mhm.
the way that community can like give us all the boost that we didn't know we really needed.
Yeah.
And then like being able to take a step back and really look at what we're doing and evaluate if this is like what even we want to be doing. Because I feel like so many of us are just trying to do all of everything, especially with the way the world's set up now. It just makes us feel like we have to do everything. And
Mhm.
I just want to create a space where we can all come together and like minded people just kind of create a community of support. And sometimes, I mean, I know I need my friends or my community to tell me that my ideas aren't crazy or to tell me that my ideas maybe need to, take a back burner right now because I'm doing too
Mhm.
much. So I just feel like there's so much value in creating a space like that. And I just want to leave women feeling inspired to do what they truly feel called to do, not what they feel like they're supposed to do.
Mm. Amen and yes to that. I love, the heart and intentionality behind like these are so many of the lessons that I have learned and I being you and like I just want everyone I know to understand their version of this for themselves. Like if you could go back to these different points of time in your life. And I'm a firm believer like every piece of our story brings us to where we are today, but knowing what you know now, like what would you tell yourself in these different instances of trial and hardship?
Oh my gosh. I know thinking back to like 2012, Ace and I weren't married, but it was like when we first started dating that summer. Oh my gosh, just to know like what the next decade would, you know, have. I mean, there's so many things that we went through and dealt with in like a decade. And I feel like when we lost the house in the fire, we were like, and then we got married the next year, we were like, well, everybody says the first year is the hardest, but we've already, our house is already burnt up and we're good to go. And then it's just like bam, 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 one thing after another. And I just probably would tell myself earlier on in the game to maybe look more inward, I guess, for that
Mm-hmm.
comfort, or that, I don't even know the word I'm trying to use, that strength, I guess, look more inward and turn more towards my faith and like trust more
Mm-hmm.
that God's got me in a way that, I learned this too. I really discovered like after we lost Evie and when I was like really in my Bible a lot. I think it may have been in a devotional, but it was said what faith really is trusting plans that you don't make. So I feel like that would be something that I would probably tell myself back 10 years ago, is what faith really means, is just trusting plans that I did not make for myself, because I feel like I made a lot of plans over the last 10 years and God was just like, nope, we're going to do it different. And I just had to let go and trust that everything would be okay and just take a step forward every day.
Yeah. So through everything you've been through and then even what you've honed over the last year, like what advice would you give someone who is in a really hard season or in preparation for the inevitable hard seasons we will all face at some point?
I would say don't get bogged down in the big picture, because it's easy to look at like the whole big, situation that you're in or going through and just let it bog you down and make you feel so heavy and weighed down. I'm going to take this from my friend Tabitha. She said this when I interviewed her. She said, make the best decision that you can make for today
Mm.
and don't worry about tomorrow. Just make the best choice you can for what you're doing today.
What does that look like for you now?
So now I feel like I'm in a much better, of course, headspace, and I feel like I see the world differently and see what I'm doing differently. But I still have days where I do spiral or do get, weighed down by life. And then more recently, I feel like I just felt like a lot of pressure on myself. And then I had to like sit back and say, where is this coming from? Is this like
Mm-hmm.
me, or so being able to even realize that I need to stop and kind of analyze where is this pressure coming from, I feel like is a huge difference
Mm-hmm.
from like a year ago me to today me. But
Yeah.
I really, yeah, I really value how much I have changed and grown in that way, that I'm just like so much more self aware. And then sometimes I'm like, is being self aware really that great? I mean, I feel like I, like, am I too
Yeah.
aware? But no, there's really, really a lot of, I feel like, strength comes from being able to reflect like that and help
Mm-hmm.
me move forward and know that, it's okay to do
Yeah.
whatever. I can do it different. I can do it the same way. I mean, like, I can just move forward and from a better place or a more peaceful place within myself.
Mm. I think you bring up a really good point because a lot of times when we leave something we love for something else, then we like reapply different or more pressures on
Hmm.
ourselves to like see it through a certain way or have it be a certain way. And so then it's like we left one hard for a whole new trap of drowning. And I think what you've modeled really well is like, what does it look like to continue filter this through the lens of, am I living my life on a day-to-day basis the way that I want to? Does this fit? How does this fit? Like, and if not, what changes can I make? And how can I shift this? And like, how could I continue to grow through it? And I know that's something that I really resonate with, even just in the work that I'm doing now, is that continual pursuit of not only growth, but intentionality and giving myself permission to evolve and grow through even the new things, because it's just as easy to get trapped in that, what are they going to think of me, or I said I was going to do this and now I'm not sure, and like for what? Like if there's anything that I take from your story, it's that life is so precious and so short, and we know rationally we're not guaranteed anything from day to day, but there are certain moments that happen to us or the people around us that really bring that realization back to center. And so on a continual basis, evaluating like, does this feel the way I want it to? Like, am I excited about the way this is going? Like, and if not, how can I shift either the physical circumstances or my mindset or the people around me or, what I'm influenced by or who I have to support me in order to create and sustain a reality that I love? And it sounds easier said than done that way,
Oh,
but
but it's not.
it's not. I think that's where like a lot of us are like, oh, if I make all of these changes, then suddenly life's going to be perfect and easy. And like, but
It's an ongoing thing. It's like never ending.
mhm,
You have to just keep on like evaluating and reflecting and making sure. I think I
mhm,
heard someone talk about balance. You know how we say a lot, there's no such thing as balance, but they said balance, there is a such thing as balance. It's just a constant thing. It's not like a stagnant thing. It's continual, shift of, and that really made me
mhm,
like think of balance differently. Like
mhm.
balance is possible, but balance is like if you think of somebody walking across the tightrope, they're constantly like
Yeah.
moving their arms and trying to balance.
Mhm,
So that really made me look at how I live life day to day, that like things can fluctuate and change and move
mhm.
around, and it's okay. I don't know why we have that idea in our brains that it's like, I don't know if it's a millennial thing or what, but I feel like we all have in our head like we get to this certain point in life and we're going to have family and we should have a job and this is what we're going to do and this is just going to be perfect and we don't change anything for 30 years. I don't know where that comes from, but I feel like a lot of us are suffering from that. I'm sure you have
Yes.
opinions on
I have so many theories on this. I have talked about this so many times. Yeah, we just have this like, well, that's what we were handed. Like, check all of these boxes and then you will be happy. Amen. And that's just not reality. And so
yeah.
I have to remind myself, like, I get to choose my heart because actually nothing is easy. Like, I have a baby home with me working and it's hard, but it's a hard that I'm choosing. And I don't want to change it right now, but also I can be aware that it's hard.
There's room for two things at once.
Exactly. Well, and that mindset alone is so liberating because I
Yeah.
think we like bully ourselves into thinking that if it doesn't feel great all the time, it's not
Hmm.
worthwhile or that we're doing something wrong. And there's a dichotomy for good and bad and hard and easy and all of it. It all fits together. And so for me, I just kind of keep coming back to like, am I being intentional? Like, in the grand scheme of the day, like do I feel good about the way that I'm spending my time and like what I'm surrounded by and the things that I'm pursuing, and knowing that that will and should change, which is uncomfortable. Change is inevitable, but the more that we welcome it and embrace it, like that gets us closer to where we were meant to be. And I know there's like so many cliches, like happiness is not a destination, it's a journey, but like it's so true.
It's the truth. Yeah.
There's like that arrival fallacy or like the lie of once of like, once I do this, then I will be happy. Well, like it's more so about like that, you know, not to go all Coach Kai on us, but like finding joy in the journey of the everyday, right? Anyway, but I am so grateful for the opportunity to have gotten to know you and your story and to just watch you transition what reality looks like and continue to hone that muscle, because it really is of self-awareness, and just create so many really beautiful things that are helping the women that you're connected to not only understand what you've been through, but understand what they are going through and that they are strong and capable of navigating whatever life throws their way, and most importantly knowing that they don't have to do it alone, because that can feel isolating anywhere. But I know you and I have talked about like just what it looks like to go through hard stuff in small towns and how overwhelming and scary and lonely that can feel sometimes.
Like you're under a microscope in a small town, and it can just be very, you feel alone, but at the same time you can't, yeah, you can't be unseen. I don't know, it's like you can't have that solitude and that peace that you could in a big area.
We could go a lot of different directions with even that alone, but I know that you are headed to the salon today. Well, speaking of, you're about to
Mhm.
open up a new salon. So if anyone is listening from your region, where can they find you there? And if we are listening from afar, where can we connect with you online?
My personal page is Kaitlin Ashley Cox, and I post a lot of just day to day things there. And then my podcast page is at Emerging as Me, and that is going to be where I post more info on like the event in November that's coming up. I've really been trying to navigate Instagram and decide what I want to post where. So that's kind of how I'm doing. All the podcast updates are on the Emerging as Me page, and then along with the event there too. And then my more personal day to day life is on at Kaitlin Ashley Cox. I also have a hairstylist page. It's just my personal hairstylist page now. So it's at Hair by Kaitlin Cox. And you can find, I'm sure, coming up in the next couple of months. So June, July is the tentative opening date for the new salon in Faribault, North Carolina. And it's going to be there on Main Street. It's a brand new building that the town is building back after the hurricanes that have flooded us so badly. The state granted us some money, and I'm so excited. The building has 16 storefronts, and we have an elevator, and I'm so excited about the elevator. We don't even have a caution light or anything like that, but we've got an elevator in town. So I don't know. My kids might have it, burn up the first week when they figure out it's there and they can go up and down in it. But I'm really excited about all the businesses that are coming back to town. There's going to be a bakery beside me. I'm really excited for that. I don't know if that's good or bad for my wallet or my hips, but there's just so much coming to town. And I've got so many great stylists and a nail tech that I know them all and love, and I'm so excited to get in the salon with them together as a team and just bring our main street back to life. So I'm really
Mm.
excited for what's to come later in the year. So the name of that salon, I don't think I've said it, is River's Edge Hair Co. And my icon that is in my logo, I just want to talk about it a little bit because this is very special. So
Mhm.
it is a raindrop. It looks like two dots, but it kind of looks like a semicolon at a glance. But it's a raindrop and a seed. And the
Mm.
raindrop kind of symbolizes, the town has been through two floods from all the rain. And then I think of it too, from my perspective, I'm married to a farmer, and just the symbolism of the seed, and then all the things I've been through over the past 10 years plus, and just coming out of all that, I take from it that, like, you can come out of hard things, and growth can come from really hard things and hard times. You can learn a lot about yourself, and you can always move forward.
It's so beautiful. Oh, I love that so much. And I love just hearing you talk about what is being done collectively to revitalize this part of your small town. I think, so many of the areas that we live in and love have been dying in so many ways for decades. And I see this like wave of revolutionaries and so many women who are passionate about where they live and don't want to raise their families anywhere else, who are having these ideas spark of what can we do? What can I do? Like, how can I serve my family and serve my community and do something that I love? And so getting to witness the way that you are leading the people around you in that is also incredibly cool.
I couldn't imagine living anywhere else but here. And I'm excited about what we get to create in the future here.
Mm. Well, Kaitlin, I ask every guest on this show, what does personal growth mean to you in this season?
In this season, it means letting myself get tangled up in fear and doubt, I feel like. So
Mm.
just, like we've been talking about self-awareness and all those feelings, and being able to reflect and kind of move forward. And you talked about tenacity. I feel like that's a big part of kind of where I'm at today with personal growth. Is I've got all these big ideas and things I want to do, and I get myself worked up into like a panic sometimes. I think just, because we want to do all the things, and I stress out a little bit. But knowing that, I tell myself all the time too, being scared is a good thing because it means that I care about what I'm doing. I feel like anything worthwhile that you do, a little bit of fear is healthy, I guess. I know that sounds
Mhm.
weird, probably, but I feel like being scared just really shows that you're vulnerable, that you care, and that you love what you're doing. You have emotion for what you're doing. So being able to balance all those feelings and still, keep it going every day, taking those baby steps, even though they're tiny some days, but moving forward every day through the fear is really kind of where I'm at with personal growth now.
Well, I saw a quote the other day, and I'm going to butcher it, but it was something like, if you're not a little bit terrified of the work that you're doing, you haven't even gotten close to the top of what's possible for you. And that really hit me because I'm like, wow, yeah, like I'm at this place where I feel really good about everything that I'm doing, and it's easy and fun and flowing well, but it kind of was this wake up call of like, okay, like I've been feeling like it's time to evolve and like it's time to grow. And you're right. I haven't felt scared of what I'm doing in a while. So what does that look like? Oh, here we go.
Don't discount what you're doing, Emily, because you've been doing a lot, and the work that you've been doing is great. Because, I mean, I don't know what I would be doing realistically if I had not have found your podcast and gone to Ascend. Like, realistically, what would I be? So don't discount
Mhm.
what you're doing because you've really, like, changed so many lives. I mean, realistically. I would not be sitting here talking to you. I wouldn't have a podcast. I just would not be doing all these things that I'm doing. So, and if I was doing them, I probably would not be doing them with this level of awareness that I have.
You're going to make me cry. So, but that's what, I think like the heart of what I do and why I do it is what it looks like to, change our small towns from the inside out, is like helping women like you and me gain that awareness and that clarity and that confidence and that community to do what they're meant to do. And not only from a career professional standpoint, but like the work that we do on ourselves and the way that we redefine what it means to be purposeful and intentional, like that changes the way we interact with everyone. And that changes our hearts and the way that we lead and the way that we parent, which then impacts our kiddos and everyone around them. And I truly think it's a ripple effect. The number of women who listen to your podcast now and who will come to this event and then go forth and do whatever is meant for them and gain awareness in whatever it looks like for them. And then that is how we elicit real world change. And to do it in these small towns that we love, like that is intergenerational legacy. And so to get to be a piece of your story and so many other women's stories is nothing short of like the greatest honor of my life, because I know that it's not just me and it's not just you. It is the ripple effect of, women being purposeful and ultimately learning to trust themselves and be confident in who they are and not drown in the expectations of others or spend their time on negativity for themselves or anyone around them. Like that's what fires me up. So thank you for sharing that. It means a lot. Well, Miss Kaitlin, I appreciate you so much, and I cannot wait to be with you in the Carolinas. I have to say both because it's like a state line hopping thing.
Line.
And everyone else who will be there, please, if you're listening to this, you are welcome. Please come and join us. Let's go hang out close to the beach. I mean, we can go to the beach, right? We're very
Yeah,
close.
we're like an hour from the beach. So we could
Perfect.
like have the event and then just go to the beach and eat at a really nice. I mean, like it's an option.
That sounds perfect. And we've been talking about an Ascend reunion forever. And I think that it just needs to be at Caitlin's in the Carolinas. I can't think of a better place. So
We can do it.
anyone listening, you are welcome. Come hang out. We're going to have more conversations just like this. We're some very cool people and generate some really cool ideas. So I can't wait.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kaitlin.
Bye. Thank you.
Have I told you today how much I appreciate you? I'd like to imagine this was a meaningful backyard patio kind of chat between friends sipping LaCroix at sunset. If you enjoyed today's show, please take a screenshot to share or forward this episode to a friend. You can also find me at Emily Rushell over on social to continue the conversation. It's truly a joy to hear what tidbits and takeaways made an impact on your day. As always, all links and resources mentioned in today's episode can be found in the show notes listed below or over at emilyrushell.com. Special thanks to my podcast manager, Jill Carr, for the time and love she puts into producing Gather and Growth for this community. What a blessing it is to be on this personal growth journey together. Forever grateful for you.